Hi, I'm Jeff Beck, the owner of Uproarious Games, and I'm here to show you our newest game, Intrepid. This is a game we're extremely excited about, so thanks for taking a minute to look at it. Intrepid is a cooperative, asymmetric game. All players are astronauts aboard the International Space Station working together to survive some disaster that's happening on the space station. So the game, as you can see, is already set up. This is set up for a 4-player game. In a 2-player game, you would make a few changes. A 3-player game, you make a few changes, but let's go ahead and go with a 4-player game. Each country, or I should say each player picks a country. Right now we have set up with United States, Germany, Japan, and the United Kingdom. There are 8 different countries to pick from in the game. Each country is completely different. The little puzzle that they have to play throughout the game is unique to the country they play. But we'll talk about that more in just a minute. Each country has their own unique tiles that they're placing here on the player board. I should point out this, of course, is just a prototype. Everything you see here, not final in any stretch. This will be an official board or probably a mat, but you know, this lets us play the game. So each country has their own tiles. Each country has a resource tracker. There are 4 resources in the game. There's nutrition, power, oxygen, and climate. At the beginning of the game, each resource starts at in a negative. So in this case, they're all starting at -6. Each round, you need to produce enough resources to get that out of the negative. If any of the resources is still in the negative at the end of a round, it's game over. The players die in space. So if they don't have enough oxygen, they can't breathe. They don't have enough climate, they freeze to death. They don't have enough nutrition, they starve to death. And if they don't have enough power, everything shuts down. And bad news for the team. So that's generally what you're trying to do each round, is generate enough resources. Now, like I mentioned, there's a disaster that's going on the station at the same time. This disaster is going to hamper your ability to generate those resources and slow down your ability to accomplish your goals. In order to overcome this disaster, you have these mission cards. So you're going to shuffle up this deck at the beginning of the game, and then depending on the difficulty level you want to do, you're going to have a certain number of mission cards that you need to accomplish. Mission cards help you win the game, but they also consume a resource. So in this case, this one here we have on top, put your back into it, is going to consume 10 nutrition, and it's going to do that over the course of several rounds. So players can plan ahead for that. They know, okay, we're going to need a lot of nutrition in order to get through that first card. They don't know what the second card is, so they can't quite plan that far ahead. But, 10 nutrition, that's a lot. At the beginning of the game, they're going to be making probably around 12 nutrition, and that needs to also take into account how much drain they have here starting at -6. So they're going to get, best case, +6. If they took 10 off that, it would put them right back in the negative, they'd lose the game. So you're going to have to kind of build up toward that. So how the game plays, every player is going to play simultaneously. So at the beginning of the round, every player is going to roll their dice. Each country is going to roll a certain number of dice. It kind of depends on the country because, again, they're asymmetric. Every country plays a little differently. So like, for example, the United States, they're going to roll 2 dice, whereas Germany, they're going to roll 6 dice. So let's just do that here. All right. So now they're going to play simultaneously, placing their dice on their tiles. Every tile has a little bit of a different benefit. So like, for example, if I place this here, I'm immediately going to get a dice back. I'm going to get a dice that's either increased or decreased from the number I had there. So like maybe I want this 6 here. The dice is going to wrap, so I'm going to get around to a 6. Now, you can also share dice. So like, for example, the United States has a tile here that they really need a double. Well, that's going to be really hard for them to do because they have a 4 and a 6. It's not very close. So maybe they're going to work with their friend here, Germany. Germany has a 6 they can share. They place it here on one of the 4 docking modules. When they do that, the United States will take one of their own dice, set it to the same number, and now they have those dice to work with. And maybe now I have this extra 4. I'll give that back to Germany, place it here, use another docking module, and Germany now has a 4 to work with. So there are 4 docking modules where players can share dice. So that's a big interaction, especially during the dice placement phase, is sharing dice, saying, hey, I really need this number. I can't make it myself. and working together like that. Once all players have placed their dice, it's time to count the resources. So what we'll do is we'd count up first all the power. So in this case, both United States and Germany produce power. And so let's say they had some dice on like this. And so they just call it out and say, okay, I made 6. Okay, I made 5. Okay, so we count that up. So 6 puts us at 0 and 5 puts us at +5. So that's great. We survived on power. Next up, we're going to be looking at oxygen. Okay, we just count up and say, okay, how much oxygen we made? Okay, we total of 6. How much climate we made? We made 7. Hey, we did really good on climate. And over here, nutrition. Okay, we made 5 nutrition. So we'd count that up, and that's how much we made. Now it's time to deal with the disaster. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this top card from the disaster deck. It's only level 1, so it's not going to be terrible. We're going to flip it over, and it's going to tell us what to do. In this case, we're playing the meteor shower disaster. There are several different disasters in the game that each are unique scenarios. They each mess with your engine in different ways. So in this case, what we're going to do is we're going to roll this disaster die, and then so we got a 1, and we're going to hit all tiles on this column here 1. Luckily, we didn't have any tiles, so we'd be safe this round. So we can breathe a sigh of relief. All right. Now, once we've dealt with the disaster card, it's time to count up our capacity and then spend our capacity to increase our engine. Well, how much capacity do we make? That's whatever our lowest resource is. So in this case, we have 5 power, 5 nutrition, 6 oxygen, and 7 climate. Well, 7 climate's great, but unfortunately, our lowest is how much capacity we made. So we made 5 power and nutrition. So everyone's going to have 5 capacity to spend. Now, capacity is kind of our money in the game, and there's several things we can do with it. First thing we can do is we can upgrade the number of dice we have. So, for example, Brazil here, they're going to start in this first slot with 5 dice. But then if they spend 4 capacity, they can upgrade the next round and they'll get 7 dice. So everyone can get more dice. Now, dice are only useful if you have places to put them. So you need to think, okay, did I fill up all my dice slots this last round? If I did, getting a new dice may not be helpful. So maybe I want to get a new tile. So the next thing you can do is you can buy a tile. At the beginning of the game, you're only be able to buy from level 1, or I should say tier 1 tiles. So this is, for example, the United States has 4 to pick from. They might look through those and say, okay, we didn't do super great on power, so I'm going to look through mine. I'm going to find a power tile. I'm going to purchase it. Now, when you purchase a tile, it has a price, which is in the top left. It also adds to the drain of a different resource. So, for example, this here we have a hydrogen fuel cell. Okay, that sounds exciting. It's going to generate some nice power for us. Unfortunately, it's going to add a drain to our oxygen. So what we do in that case is we put that tile down. We'd spend our capacity, but the drain on oxygen would go up. So we'd take this wheel here and we'd spin it, and it goes up by 2. So now the next round, instead of starting at -6, we're going to start at -8. It's going to make it a little bit harder for oxygen, but no problem because someone else can perhaps buy an oxygen tile just to counteract that. And so maybe UK here buys this oxygen tile. Whoa, that's going to add to a drain on climate. And so you can see how these things kind of counterbalance each other, and so you have to be careful. Now, the final thing you can do with your capacity is you can upgrade tiles. Every tile can be upgraded. It costs 5 to do so. You just flip the tile over, and now it's generally better in some way. Maybe it's more flexible. It's easier on which dice can be placed there. It generates more resources. Perhaps it gives a dice back. Things of this nature. So upgrading tiles is great. Also, it doesn't add to the drain, so it's a good way. You get a little bit of a boost, not as much of a boost as buying a new tile, but you get a little bit of a boost without adding to the drain of something else. All right, let's talk about the specific countries. Like I said, there are 8 in the game. They all have their own unique puzzles. So I won't go through each one, but I'll give you just an example of some of them and how they work. So you already saw the United States. Generally what the United States is doing, they're going to roll their dice, and they're trying to get a double out of this. They have a tile that gives them a dice back when they place a dice there, but when they do, that dice is now going to be increased or decreased. So for example, if I roll this 2 and a 6, I might place a 2 here, get a new dice, set it to a 1, because it's 1 less. I might place that 1 there, I can do it again because there's 2 slots on it. Get a new dice, and now I'm going to rotate the dice all the way back to a 6, 1 less than 1, it wraps and goes to a 6. Now I have doubles that I can place there. So that would be a great move for the United States. Germany, as you saw before, rolls just a ton of dice. Unfortunately, when they roll their dice, they don't have access to all of them. A lot of them end up in storage. So you roll your dice, and now I have these dice here, but they're all in storage. And what I need to do for Germany is I need to spend dice with an equivalent number of pips. So like, for example, if I wanted to use this 6, I could get rid of this 6. This 6 just is gone. It gets erased. But now I have this 6 that I can use. You can combine dice together in order to get it out more efficiently. So like, for example, let's say I had a 1 in here as well. So I have a 5 and a 1, and I want those both. I could spend this 6 to get out the 5 and the 1. Or vice versa, if I really want another 6, I could spend the 5 and the 1 to get out a 6. So even though Germany has a bunch of dice, they're going to be spending them to pull dice out of storage to then place on their tiles. They have tiles that let them manipulate dice in storage. Maybe add dice to their storage, take dice out of storage without spending for them, different things like that. All right, so that's a level 1 complexity, a level 2 complexity. Let's talk about a level 3 complexity in Japan. Japan is actually one of my favorites to play because Japan, very unique. They actually use their dice in physical 3D space. They actually rotating their dice, trying to get to 3s. So for example, if I place this 4 here, I'm going to gain a new die. I'm going to set it exactly like this die. In fact, I'm even going to orient it with the 4 on top and the 5 facing that direction. And then I'm going to tilt it left. Right? So I'm going to use my left. So I'm going to tilt it this way. And now I have this 1 here. I can place that. I can do it again. Okay, so I'm going to get a new dice with the 1 on top and the 5 facing you. And I'm going to tilt it left again. And now I have a 3. Well, that's very important for Japan because they have certain tiles that only accept 3s. So being able to manipulate their dice in 3D space so they can get 3 is what they're all about. Finally, let's talk about a level 4 complexity. In this case, we'll talk about UK. So UK is unique in that, unlike any other country, the dice they place have not a direct, but an indirect impact on how much resources they make. It's going to have a direct impact on the resources they make next round. What I mean by that is, as you can see, UK starts with dice already on tiles. So they're going to roll their dice, and now they need to place dice that are higher than the dice already there. So like, for example, I may play this 5 here because that's higher than this 3. Well, unfortunately, this 1 is not higher than this 3, so I can't place that there. But maybe I place that there, and so you're going to work with your tiles as you can. Now, at the end of the round, the tiles that have the dice already on it, I'm going to make resources equal to this die, not the dice I place. So again, you have to think 1 turn ahead. But then this die is going to slide over, and now next round, that 5 is going to be a number. So now I need a 6. So that's going to be harder to use, but on the other hand, it's going to generate more resources. So there's a kind of a give and take with regards to how UK works. Now, the disaster will continue to heat up. Things will go wrong. It will place little disaster tokens, assuming we're doing the meteor shower, on these tiles, which make them less effective. But if you can continue to upgrade your tiles, get new tiles, and advance so that you can complete these mission goals, you'll be able to win the game. So that's basically Intrepid. It's a really tense, tight experience, cooperative, with a good amount of asymmetry. It's nice because there's no alpha player situation. Everyone's playing at the same time, and everyone's doing something completely differently. But there are fantastic opportunities to work together, either when you place dice, so you can share dice, or when you're buying tiles. Hey, is it all right if I buy this tile that drains power? I know you make power. Can you offset what I'm about to do? So you have to work together in order to survive this disaster. So that's the basic quick overview of Intrepid. Thanks a lot.